you for
Hi.
you're finally on Zillion Trillion. It only took us like 5 times of me getting confused, you getting confused, and we're like made it happen. We're here.
Yes, I'm so
We're
happy to be here.
same. I feel like jewelry is a very overwhelming topic for a lot of us, including me, I think at the beginning too. And you make it all sound so fun and not daunting. So I'm super excited to like have this conversation with you today.
Me
For all
too.
of
I
you
mean,
that you don't know, Victoria has a company called the Stacks. And you want to tell us a little bit more about what you do in the company?
sure. I started the Stacks I think it's almost been 4 years, with my then partner, Laurel Panton, who's like still one of my best friends and a big muse of mine. We were coming out of COVID. Laurel and I both had kids around the same age at the same time. Um, and I think COVID really made me think about like finding, I don't know, wanting to like seek beauty again in community. And I had moved to LA. I didn't really know many people, and I wanted to kind of channel my grief into something that felt beautiful. And jewelry to me is very special and sentimental for a lot of reasons, which I think we'll probably get into. But Laurel and I just started an Instagram together where I kind of showcased an aesthetic and things that I felt really, you know, I felt inspired by, like whether it was a painting or, a 70s like picture of, Diana Ross, or it was like, you name it. It was a world that I wanted to create, like almost like a mise en scène that then related to jewelry. And it felt like accessible, but also fun and flirty and um, not so exclusive. I think jewelry can feel really daunting, and it can feel like, I just wanted to make it fun again, and I wanted to have something that I could look back on as like a mood board. And so the Stacks came out of just like us wanting to collaborate and share things that we felt really inspired by in the jewelry world. And it was named after my mother. My mom passed away of cancer, and I wanted to really, the impetus to do this was my mom was an artist and a DJ back in the day. And so her nickname was Stacks, like Stacks of Wax Records. And the way that I layer jewelry really relates also to like the name, right? It's like I stack things, whether it's like a friendship bracelet or it's, my mom's bangle that I never took off, like you name it. I feel like they're very protective. And so the Stacks really was to pay homage to her also, and just like the colorful like life and vibrancy that she raised me with. And then since the kind of the genesis of it, we were lucky in that it took off in different directions, and we were doing really interesting projects, and it became a full-fledged business pretty quickly. And so I took over the business, and now it's kind of me, myself, and I at the helm of it. And then I work and collaborate with a lot of people on different projects. So now it's kind of, I would say it's still an Instagram where it's like a discovery page for people to come and discover brands they might not know or see brands in a different light. Um, it's also an advisory, so I advise brands on growth strategy. So I built that slowly, and I work with brands in a number of ways. Um, and then I really, I guess, influence, right? I always feel like cringe when I say that word, but I take a lot of content of jewelry. I go and do studio visits all the time. I'm constantly excited by seeing someone like a random person in a store and asking like where that silver ring is from. Like I'm always kind of like looking at bait when it comes to jewelry. So now that's kind of how I work. I started a Substack that I have sadly let go to the wayside a bit as we moved cross country. That feels like yesterday. It's been almost a year, but ultimately, like it's also a passion of mine. It's like writing
Yeah,
about jewelry.
already has it been almost a year?
Yeah.
Insane.
Well, I guess like not. I mean, it will be a year in July.
Yeah, I mean, that's yeah, that's insane. That's
So yeah,
crazy.
that's my rambling kind of trying to summarize what the Stacks is.
Where did your love of jewelry start? Like, was your mom super into jewelry and she kind of like taught you her ways, or like where did it come from?
Yeah, I think that my mother was very into jewelry. Um and I like some of my earliest memories were asking to like go in her jewelry box, which my kids now do with me, which is really sweet. My son actually like loves going in it, and so does my daughter. Um and it was just like it was a very calm time. My mom was like a really energetic, kind of frenetic person, and those moments of stillness with her going through her jewelry box and asking about the memories of different pieces, like is still one of like it still makes me feel like all that warm and fuzzy kind of maternal energy that I miss.
Yeah.
Um, because she was just calm and she would walk through the pieces with me, and there was nowhere else she had to go. Like I felt like those moments were really still and beautiful.
I feel like that's the thing with jewelry too. Like if you just don't buy it just to buy, if they feel like heirlooms that you're really going to leave your kids and that kind of live on, which is also why it can be so daunting to choose, like even have an idea of where to start. Because now, especially like, okay, I have kids and then like I become the cheesy mom that like, I just want like, can't wait for them to do a drawing and then I'm going to have that. Or I remember I bought this from you, from one of your designers. I was like, oh, it was like for Atlas and Adam, and I have a P for like, Phoenix. And it just seems like such a nice way of honoring kind of like love and the light that you kind of have around too, right?
Yeah, I think that, you know, a big part of like my story is grief and how that relates to motherhood. And for me, when my mom passed, I still have nightmares about like someone coming and like taking her paintings. Like I don't think that's what someone would steal. They'd come and,
Yeah.
probably look for jewelry or handbags or whatever, right? Ideally. But I still think of like the fear of things that belong to my mother being taken from me. And so jewelry is something that I can't walk around with her paintings all day, right? Like, so for me, it's like every day I wear a piece of my mother's jewelry, and it can be for protection. It can feel commemorative. It can feel, there's different reasons why I wear it, but I feel even when I was giving birth, they asked me to take off all my jewelry, right? I think that's
Yeah.
like a safety precaution, and I refuse to take off my friendship bracelet with my mother. We had this Elsa Ferretti bracelet that we both wore and never took off.
Wait, when
And
did
I
she give
think
you that?
she gave that to me on Christmas when I think I was 21. It was like my 21st birthday. Um, and my mom it's interesting. I was just talking to my older sister, Brooke, about this. Um, we miss someone celebrating us. Like I think a mother celebrates their children in a very specific way. And jewelry like encapsulates that for me. Like I still remember that morning with my mom and like opening the box and like, the Tiffany blue box, all those things that are marketing, schemes, ultimately they still resonate with me. When I gave birth, I wore this brace and I remember the nurse saying like, you have to take this off. And I looked at her and I said, no, you don't understand. My mom had just passed a cancer. I don't want to take off this bracelet. It's like my friendship bracelet with my mother. And she looked at me and she goes, I totally understand. My mom also passed a cancer. I was like, what? And then I found out the two nurses that were my delivery nurses had both lost their mothers to cancer. And it felt in that moment of just like serenity that ultimately I only found out because of a bracelet. You know what I mean? Like I found out that these angels were, because they wound up being just absolute angels during the childbirth, like the birth and all of that. So I also just feel like the connectivity that it can bring, that's not just about like retail or consumerism, like I think is really special. And that's what I try and do at the Stacks when I work with private clients.
Yeah, it's so funny because there's all these synchronicities that always keep happening and obviously have a lot to do with energy. And I feel like
Yeah.
especially when you're dealing with stones, they come with so much energy as well that
Yeah.
it's a way of like as amulets for luck or love or remember. But I think what I mean, and I know you heard our interview with Jess, but at the very beginning, we're just gushing about you for like 10 minutes, and you're like this like Care Bear that just exudes this rainbow energy all the time. And I think it must be very hard once you have such a big loss in your life to really try to make something good out of it. What was that journey like for you? Was that like just immediate where you're like, okay, I'm gonna like stand back on my feet. This is what my mom would have wanted to, or like how did you end up kind of like thinking that this was the path to honor her?
It's a good question. I think it was so, my mom, not to get into like, I think to get into like the real pain of it, right? Like, because I feel like out of that came a lot of beauty. And to this day, I try and make the beautiful like more important than the darkness in my life, right? Because everyone goes through things at different times, but it was a very fast paced cancer my mother had. So from diagnosis to passing, it was only 4 months. And in those 4 months, I remember making jewelry with Salon Jazakiri. Actually, I made a ring. My mom's middle name was Faith, and I made a script ring for her on her birthday on November 15th, and she would pass literally a month and 3 days later. And I remember I had a green emerald on the eye of the faith, and green was a very healing color for my mom when she was sick. She like whenever because cancer is so hot, like it just like it's just you feel like you're crawling out of your skin, and the only thing that would really calm her is some energy healing that we did with a really special woman who would come to that apartment, and she would have my mom really think about green, and it would kind of calm her down. So I became everyone like we started the conversation by talking about green, right, and the color of my wall, and like I to this day, green is the branding of the stacks. It's like, I mean, I have two different Yeti cups and they're both green. It's just like, it's all, like, it's all, I guess one's a Stanley Cup, but it's, green is just like, it envelops me in a way that I try and remember that, like, even in all of that madness, there are moments of serenity with her that really just were based on color, and this, and so for me, I always try and wear an emerald. But I think the real, I rant about this, but I think it was so hard. She got sick. She passed so quickly. I at the time was working at W Magazine, freelancing for them in the events division, and I went right back to work. And I found out I was pregnant so soon after. So I went from being like someone's daughter to being motherless to then finding out I was pregnant. I feel like the minute you find out you're pregnant, you become a mom in a way. Like I had to then take care of myself in a different way. And that really was what made us move to LA, because I felt if I didn't get out of New York, where it had so many visual triggers for her being sick and her journey, I felt I would lose the baby. So it was like that was the most maternal thing I could do, is actually move at that time, because I didn't want anything to happen to my baby, because the grief was so visceral. And so that was just like it was all encompassing, and 2 kids in 2 years. You know what that's like. Like you had babies very close in age. And I wouldn't trade it for the world, but I didn't know what was like up and down for years. Like, LA was very isolating for me for a long time. And it wasn't until actually I met Daniela Villegas and I started going to that music class and I met you. She really made my life feel like vibrant again, and she connected me with a group of women, including you and a lot of other people I really love. That felt like home. Like it was the first time I felt like I had a community in LA.
Yeah.
And that was also related to jewelry. Like Daniela immediately understood, and you were wearing the diamond ring, and I was just like, oh my god! And I recognized how important that tablet ring was, and I love Diane's work because of you. I remember seeing it on you for the first time, and but just being able to be around women that understood, like, since then Daniela's gone through loss. I know you've gone through loss. It was really important to me to bring that into some sort of like visual world, and that's where the Instagram really came from.
Yeah. I think
But
it's
yeah,
also interesting that class randomly, because I would judge people that even went to music classes. I thought it was such an American cheesy thing to do.
yeah, totally.
Like, why are all white women? Because it's a white people thing too, and it's like, why are all women pretending that they're like that, whatever? Like, this is weird. I didn't really have that many mom friends that had just moved to LA too, and they're all there. And everyone that you talked to that went to that class, there were women that were, some of them had even gone through postpartum depression, and somehow it saved them. It gave everyone a community. Everyone was just so creative and so colorful in their own unique ways, whether it was art or fashion or music or whatever industry they were in. And kind of to your point, there was a lot of jewelry in the middle, because I mean, Daniela Villegas is who we're talking about, is a fine jewelry designer that makes the most beautiful jewelry with all these fat features, and everything is just so magical. And this class ended up becoming this magical place that in a way saved us all, or like helped us all in a time. And it was such a time in life, and now I have a second baby and I don't have that class. I have other classes, but you can recreate that moment with that specific group, and I'm kind of sad because my son is even turning 1 on, and I'm like, oh, I wish like I had that group, but for Phoenix, right? But I don't have that anymore, and it was just so special.
I can't believe. First of all, I can't believe he's turning 1. I feel like it was yesterday that you were in the stroller and he was like a newborn.
Going to your event, he was going. Casey and me used to go to all your all your jewelry events with the little Junas.
Yeah, totally. It just felt like, as corny as it sounds, it felt like a hug. And also my son at the time was going through a lot. and the class just like really like buoyed him. I felt like music, the teacher, it was music, she's the best, really like got Rex and like loved him. It just felt like a very inclusive environment with a lot of creatives. And I hadn't experienced that. So that really was a turning point because I started that group, going to that group right when I started the Stacks. So it was all like, it was all kind of this one like moment of like having community that I felt connected to, but also like putting it out there.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it was actually a really special time looking back.
I think that there's something to be said about like loss and like new life kind of coming interchangeably, and like, what that energy is like and how it transforms. Were there any moments where like you really feel like you felt your mother's presence even through the move and when you moved here, or like do you think she even in a way was hinting for you to like do the stacks and like build that world because it would ultimately also bring you joy and happiness again?
Um, yes, like I think that's like such a beautiful question, but I feel like I could talk about that for 2 hours, you know, because there's I could just keep talking about it. But I think that yes, my mom definitely has been like a force that I wish I could feel more. Like I wish she could be on the end of my bed talking to me. Like I'd have some ghosts like walking around the house. I just I did expect in one way that I would have more of a connection with her spirit, if that makes sense, like physically, because I just miss like I know that in my heart she's always with me and that she's protected me in a lot of ways. Like I went through a lot of health issues with my children when they were young, and she definitely was my angel through that. I mean, there were so many moments where like I could feel her guiding me towards things that felt um, that were just like good for me, right? For lack like and the stacks for sure. Like that was all out of, you know, a way to pay homage to her that felt like I don't know, like my mom was really talented, but she didn't really put herself out there. She was actually quite shy. If you were to meet her, you would never think it. She was like Scorpio energy and wearing a motorcycle jacket and smoking and amazing with like color and gross sunglasses on and the booming laugh. But like she was actually really shy and reserved
Kind of like
in a
you,
way. Yeah, I'm like,
where
yeah,
people
I'm
would,
actually shy.
because you're such like a rainbow walking that people just automatically assume that you're going to be super outgoing, and you're actually just quite reserved. I'm being polite, but I don't want
Yeah,
to be on camera right now, or like, you know what I mean? Like,
it's really shy. I was like, how am I going to be on camera? Like, I'm actually shy. I've never done something like this. So I think like I, and like even on the stacks, I think people have always asked me to you need to post more content of yourself and show us how you do this or that. And I feel like I never really post selfies. It's something like and I'm trying to get better about putting myself out there. But for the first step, it was really like put almost like all the colors in the world that my mom introduced me to in like a grid format, you know, and then slowly I would like to do more of like content about myself, but I find I'd rather focus on other people and like, you know, and
it's just
muses of mine.
hard. It's harder when you kind of have to brand yourself, and because we're also not 17, so it's
No.
also like, am I being like, are people even gonna like me? So like, you know what I mean? Like, it's such a weird. It's like back in high school, you become so insecure, and you're like,
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. But I think at the end of the day, people end up gravitating to whatever feels that is true to whatever people are and like honest in a way, especially in a world where there's so many plastic, fantastic kind of personalities out there too. And I think that that's one of the things that like really like, obviously drew me to you as a friend, but also about the work that you're doing because it really always ends up landing very honest. There's not a piece in that Instagram or even with the work and collaborations that you're doing or the brands that you're working with that you wouldn't wear or that doesn't feel like resonates with you, right? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people also reaching out. There's a
Yeah.
thousand like, brands out there. Like, what is that process like? How do you choose the brands that you're actually working with?
You know, I think I'm so glad that that's apparent in my content. I always try and promote things that I would wear, collect. And I've yet to do like paid partnerships on Instagram, been asked to do them, which I'm like excited and honored to be asked. It's a humbling thing, but at the same time, I don't feel like the only thing I have with the stacks is, you know, I'm not doing huge, you know, collaborations with big influencers or, you know, partnerships that like get me thousands of followers. That's not really
Yeah.
what it's about. It has a very niche following of people that understand that whatever I'm doing is really like with integrity. Like I'm not doing it to get like hundreds of thousands of followers. Not that that's a bad thing. That's great. But it's really like my strategy is just to stay true to myself and put things, things out there that I really stand by. Um, and when brands come to me, I try and find ways of always seeing beauty in every brand, because I think everyone has a story, and jewelry is so subjective,
So personal.
so
It's also so
personal. So
personal
like,
what you find beautiful, you know?
like someone could think like, a tooth ring from the Victorian era is like the coolest thing ever, and another person could think that's like the creepiest thing on earth. Like you don't know. So I try and see, something in every jeweler that comes to me. But there have definitely been moments recently since moving from LA to New York where I've had to take a hiatus on like Instagram and posting because I was trying to get everyone settled and my family, myself settled and grounded and yada yada. I felt like there was a lot of nerves around taking a pause.
Yeah.
I think I felt like it's a constant thing that you have to be feeding and nurturing and your followers, and like, you're really good at that. But I felt like there was a moment there where I kind of lost that like zest because I had to focus on something else. It wasn't about like I couldn't be present for the staff, and that was a moment that like made me really think about the content, like what makes me happy and who do I want to align with and how. And I feel that any brand I work with now is someone I could spend 24 hours with and with no qualms and have like the best time.
Yeah.
I think that's what I kind of leaned back into when I had that break from boosting and doing a lot. I think I realized that, you should feel really aligned with the people you work with.
Also, I think that especially women, we're so scared of taking pauses in general in life.
Yes.
And we have this concept of everything being forever. I hate these like huge constructs of like, oh, you stopped. And it's like a day is divided in how many minutes and how many seconds. Like, you know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, you can always go back to whatever you want to do. But there's this idea is like, well, if you stop, you're not going to be able to get back and people are going to unfollow you or whatever. Whoever really like is there for you, it's going to be there for you regardless. And no one is really going to care if you take a pause at the end or not. But like, I do feel like you that especially as we get older and we have more responsibilities and we have families and we have other people that do come first, our time is more limited. And therefore, we really need to be more selective about the people that we are friends with and the people that we work with. Because otherwise, it can really take a toll on you.
Oh my gosh,
Like,
for sure. It's been very eye opening to see like what has exhausted me from owning my own business. It's not the things I thought. It's really that I get fulfilled by being around people. Like that like fills my cup up. Where some people can feel really depleted by like being social, right? But
mhm.
there are moments now that I've had to check myself where I'm like, well, no, that actually just was really draining. That didn't feel good. And I think that it might, sometimes it's okay, or it's always okay to say like no to something.
Yeah.
And I was such a yes person when I started this tax. I was just wagging my tail at every opportunity and everything. And there was a moment of burnout, where I was just like, I, as a people pleaser, like definitely a self-proclaimed people pleaser over here. Like it's very hard than promoting brands and wanting the best for everyone. Like it can feel exhausting if you feel like you're not doing enough for like, you know what I mean? There's never enough time.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What I think is so beautiful about one of the things that you do is, of course, you work with brands, but you also work with people, right?
Yes.
And you help them make beautiful, meaningful things. What is that process like? When someone contacts you for a special occasion or, how do you work with them?
It's my favorite part of my job. It doesn't feel like a job. I've been very lucky that every private client that I've worked with um, has been like an absolute pleasure. I've never had a bad experience working with anyone, and they're coming to me often with sentimental pieces. It's not just a piece, to have a big like diamond on your finger. That's not why they're coming to me, and I feel very lucky in that people know to do that, and that I'm open to all sorts of projects that are, I've done a lot with ashes. I've done a lot of memoriam jewelry that doesn't feel like, I don't think it doesn't feel dark and heavy and icky. You know, like I wear my mother's ashes on me every day. Nobody would ever notice it. The amount of times people have like touched them, like, oh my God, I love that piece. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's my mom in there. Like, what? I think that I'm very open about, like, for me, you know, when people email me or they DM me, I always jump on the phone with them. I don't have any formulaic way of dealing with a client. Everyone's different, and the way they want to communicate is different. Sometimes they want a WhatsApp, they want to have an email chain, you name it. But I work with them in any way they need in that moment. Does that make sense? So, for example, if someone came to me and they wanted to do an engagement ring, I go through every process with them. Like I helped, you know, maybe source the stone with them if they want a vintage reclaimed diamond, which I personally love. I walk them through all the different types of jewelers that can really fulfill what they're looking for and are in the same visual realm of their inspiration that they often come to the table with.
Mm-hmm.
And then I kind of hold their hand through the whole process of the design process and so on and so forth. So it's like that, or it can be like someone coming to me and saying, I lost my dog 5 years ago. I'm finally ready to do something. Can you help me? I work a lot with like hand engraving and coming up with ways to, you know, set something in stone that feels really timeless and also it's poignant. Like when you do something like that, you're ready to commemorate something. It's like a moving thing to walk someone through that.
Yeah. And then they give you a reference or something, and then you're like, okay, well, these are some designers that could do something special for you. And
Really.
then you kind of handhold them through the whole process to like,
Yeah.
and with the designer after until the end product, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is great,
And
especially because I feel
yeah,
like I wouldn't even know. It's like, I'm like, okay, Adam, just call Victoria. Like, she'll know what I want. You know what I mean? Because I feel like otherwise people get very picky about these things. I don't believe in like letting people choose for me. I'm also a Virgo, so I don't do well with like bad surprises because I have no poker face.
just
And I couldn't. So even when I
yes.
got engaged, I was like, just tell me the budget, I'll handle it. And then that's actually how I ended up meeting Sarah.
Oh,
That's how I ended up meeting Sarah because I talked to my friend Amir, who is he does like stones. So I was like, listen, I
yeah.
need to. I'm getting married. I need a stone. I hate everything in the market. Who can make me a really cool ring? And he's like, oh, you met my friend Sarah before. And I was like, have I? Like, you know, because I was living in New York at the time. And then he introduced us via WhatsApp. And then I saw her Instagram. And it was before she even launched Dime. And it ended up, I was like, her ring is insane. Anyone that designed this ring can design my ring. This is it. And then she was
Yeah.
pregnant with a baby. I was pregnant with a baby. We both were having sons. We were both petrified. So, like, poor Amir ended up being in the middle of this random WhatsApp group where it was like literally like pregnancy, cravings, a being sick, diamonds in between, and drawings, and us complaining about life and like not understanding how boys work and what we were gonna do with like a tiny baby penis or something. It was poor Amir, God bless him. He was like, I did not sign up for this. I just wanted to sell my stone and like get a ring.
Yeah, for
It's so
sure.
personal.
It's so personal. And I think, you know, it, yeah, and sometimes those projects that I think will be the least personal can be I've been surprised by some of the projects and it's always really great when someone comes back, you know.
Yeah.
But also, like, I never rush a client. Like, if they decided in the process, like, you know what, I'm actually not ready, um, I see that as like, okay, you've explored enough for you now, and come back when you're ready. Like, I think that it should never feel like a forced project, you know.
Yeah. What is one
Um,
of like the most memorable kind of projects that come to mind that you work for, like someone that you were like, wow, I'm like so excited about like what happened and I didn't know I was going to make this turn, but then it did and I'm like so excited about it.
my gosh, there's been a lot. Gosh, I mean, off the bat, I would say it was Laurel and I worked with James Givenchy Taffin on a really epic project. Um, I love James. Like I personally, I think he's awesome. I like to know him in that way. Through my in-laws knew James well before I ever did his jewelry, and he did my engagement ring. Like I have a lot of attachment to him as a jeweler. And so for me, coming off her first year of business and working on an active project with him, was like, it was just like one of those pinch me moments, because he really is an artist.
Yeah.
And the ring, took a little bit of a different turn in the end. Like the scale of the ring, what we thought the original drawing, because he just draws one drawing, he doesn't do ads or anything like that. And he had this one sketch that's beautiful that he always keeps. He never gives it to you, but he has like a wall of it. They're stunning. And that's what you go off of. And you kind of just have to trust the process.
Yeah.
And that was, the bride now, the lucky lady who got the ring was just like, she was totally besotted. And so then we were like sharing that moment. It was really cool. And
Yeah.
I would say another one that was the first grief related project we did for a close family friend, with Solange as a Curie from London. It's one of my favorite jewelers of all time. I used to live across the street from the store in London. And if you've ever been to her store, it's like walking into like, it's just unbelievable. It's like a visual emporium of like rainbows and incense and like lip rings. It's sexual, but also it's like, it's nothing's like overtly in your. I can't explain it. Like her world is just so compelling and beautiful. And so to work with her on a piece, first year as well, she has this amazing ruby heart locket, and she was able to put like someone's dog's fur inside of it, which sounds like it was beautiful, and she was able to then wear it every day, and it was like perfectly, placed over her heart. And I just remember working on that project and just feeling like it was all kind of one. It was like coming full circle for me.
We keep talking about like how daunting it can be for a lot of people to start. Where do you think is a good start when it comes to jewelry? Like, where do you buy a Cartier love bracelet? Like, what, like, not that I would, but like, like, where would someone start? Like, if someone is like, okay, I'm ready to like start my collection now, where, like, where should I go?
It's funny, like you mentioned the Cartier, like the bracelet. I think that part of what I try, or part of what I am inspired by, is like the opposite of like status symbol jewelry. Like when something feels like the piece of jewelry that should be part of your collection, I usually steer away from that. Actually, my mom really taught me not to kind of like steer away from things that feel like status symbol-y, like that's not necessarily cool. Like it could be just cooler wearing like, a plastic bangle that's a great color green than like wearing the moment piece, right? For me, like when building a collection, I think that, the first piece of jewelry that I made for myself was my family signet ring. I went to a jeweler in London, in Burlington Arcade, across the street from where my dad grew up. It was a jeweler that my grandmother used to use, and they have these amazing books in these old jewelers in London where you can go in and actually find your signet. You find your family crest.
Oh,
And so a lot of the names they have crest associated with it. So the Metcalf name had a crest, and I got it made for myself, and then my mother wound up making hers, and like we all had one. But I think that for me, it's like having a personal piece that you wear every day, like a signet. I think is really important. A Trinity ring also is like another piece that I think is really beautiful, and it's something that's timeless. You can pass down, which is just like a three. This one, like,
show it in the camera.
it's like a three. I just had this made actually, but it's like a Trinity ring is, the Cartier one is what most people know of with the
Yeah.
three different gold, but this one is all gold. It's not a Cartier one. It's by a new jeweler, Anna Pierce. So I've been like collecting feverishly already. And I asked her to make me one with sunburst and starbursts, like the old motifs, like Edwardian, where you have like the hand engraved little bursts, and they're all around. There are four on each of the gold bands, and they're each for my husband, and my two kids. So they're all intertwined, and they all have like their initial hand engraved in it. So for me, it's like this is a piece that now I wear under my family signet, and to me, it's like a whole story of two families, right? It's like where I come from and like where I'm going with my children. So for me, obviously, like that's a very personal thing that I started collecting, is something that like, that spoke to me. I think that a chain, honestly, like a really good chain goes a long way, and you can just keep wearing that and having that. Um, I would say a great watch, but I don't like big watches. I usually go towards like an old Cartier or an old, that's what I prefer, or like old Bulgari from like the 80s. It's really beautiful. Um, yeah, I would say like the staples for like starting a collection is really like something that speaks to you and makes you feel good. First, like as corny as that sounds, but just having like a great bangle, a great watch, like a beautiful chain, things that are like timeless, and then you can add on like colors and a cocktail ring also, like Daniela Viegas, like her rings are like I look at like an old Boucheron ring, I collect those as well, like something that just really like catches your eye. A great pair of boots, as silly as that sounds, I think is really elegant. Um, but also, my mom was someone who like she inspired me because in the daytime she was always in a t-shirt and jeans and motorcycle jacket. But she always had like her beautiful watch on, and she always had her Ann Dexter Jones like big ring bracelet and her Salon Jesse Fury ring. Like she had her staples, and Elizabeth Gage also was like the main one. We all had a Zodiac ring from her. It's my favorite piece to this day. And when my daughter turns 18, like I want to get one. We all got one at 18. Um, and they're enameled and the motifs are really beautiful. So again, that's like a personal piece that I love.
I feel like you keep going back to personal jewelry and doing things that like kind of feel unique to you. What are some brands that people could go and check out if they want something that feels more unique or that they can customize to a certain extent as well too?
Yeah, that's oh my gosh, there's so many. I think that Jenna Katz comes to mind first. Jenna and I started working together early when she started her business, and she's just like hit the ground running and has beautiful designs. But I would say Laurel and I have always had like these really playful moments collaborating with Jenna on pieces that feel really unique. So, for example, like one of the first Christmas gifts Laurel got me when we started the stacks was this coin pendant. Do I have it on? Yeah, and it's just like it's called the canvas coin pendant, and
Mhm.
in on it my son had written me a note that Laurel then took and like gave it to Jenna. She took a photo of it that said, "I love you, Mom." And it was one of the first times like Rex ever wrote it fully, and it looked like the U looked like a 4, and she's like really sweet. And it has 4 little diamonds around it. I never take this off, and Rex comes and asks to look at it all the time. I would say since then, I've worked on a lot of projects with Jenna. She made my family crest. She did this as a gift, like into a pendant. Danielle Sherman does beautiful lockets. She made me this one that has chrysoprase on one side because the stone has like a very special meaning to me and my husband. So every anniversary, I usually want a chrysoprase ring or chrysoprase pendant. I'm trying to open this.
What's the
But
meaning?
inside there's like,
Now I
yeah,
need to
inside there's
know.
like,
What's the meaning? That's so cool.
okay, so the chrysoprase and like even the color of this wall is like the same
And
color
the
of
color of my
chrysoprase.
sweater that we're all matching here, okay? We're
Yeah,
all
yeah. So we're all feeling this green color, but I would say that it's a funny story, but basically, I met Mike when I was 25. This will be our 10-year wedding anniversary this year. We've been together far longer than that. We've been together like almost 14 years. Right? Anyway, I love this man so much. And basically, right before I met him, I was walking around London and All Saints Road. At the time, I was living at home, and my parents lived in Notting Hill. And I would kind of walk about the market on Saturday and Sunday, and this new store had opened on All Saints Road that was a crystal shop. And I had been taught early on that the first, like someone who's really into healing and crystals, and as a kid told me that if you're looking at a vitrine of like tons of crystals and your eye goes to one of them immediately and is like energetically like you lock eyes with the stone, that's usually the stone that can help you and has properties that like are healing or whatever. So in that store I walked in and my eyes immediately went to these little chrysoprase earrings or just like little, you know, orb earrings, little crystals. And I think they were about 60 pounds. And at the time I was like, that's a lot of money. But I wound up looking at them and kind of hemming and hawing and being like, oh, these are beautiful. And um, as I was about to buy them, this old lady walked in and said to the lady at the store, she was like, "Your crystals have saved my life." It's like she was just like this really sweet British lady and was talking about how these crystals have been so important to her. So I bought the earrings, and lo and behold, I looked up the spiritual properties, and it's supposed to attract true love into your life. And that's one of the kind of resonating factors of this stone. And I met Mike, I want to say a week later or 2 weeks later.
Oh, wow.
And I the earrings were on surgical steel; they weren't solid gold, and I got allergic to them. So what I would do is I would have one earring in, it would get infected, and then I move to the other ear, have this one, and I would start moving it around because I'm so superstitious that I thought if I lost the earring, I would lose him. Like it's like crazy. But I really remember the day I walked Mike back in that store like a year later, and when we were like madly in love in like the throes of the beginning of our relationship before I moved to New York for him. And we walked into the store and I got to tell the lady that I met him like 2 weeks after. Who knows if, it meant a lot to me, that
Yeah.
story. And so she was amazing about it. She's like, "Oh, honey, once you connect with the stone, you don't have to wear it anymore. It will always protect you. So you can take it off now." So then I gave it to my little sister.
I have an ear falling down.
Because so now I've this earrings kind of traveled around to different friends and sisters with hopes of them finding true love. Because I just really
So
believe
it's like the sisterhood of the traveling earrings.
yeah.
Have other people found love?
Earring is now. I should have like a geotag on it, but it's somewhere probably in like Berlin or something. Yeah.
Did anyone else find love wearing that?
Yeah, totally. After that, every anniversary I ask for, I don't ask, but like it's kind of it's our stone,
Yeah.
So
So funny. I feel like my branding brain is like, I feel like you need to make a brand of these earrings because people are gonna be like, I want to find love. I mean, I would have bought into that before I met Adam. I was like, I need love coming my way.
It's crazy. It's like, yeah, it's the amount of times I think about that story. And I remember for my 30th, Mike got me, it was like my mom passed right before my 30th. And I would go into Cartier with her when she was sick. She lived on the Upper East Side, and before the chemo like really got to her, we would go on these strolls, and we'd go into like all the beautiful stores, and we went into Cartier, and there was this chrysoprase amulet necklace, and my mom said, when I get better, I'm going to buy you this necklace, and we're going to you're going to wear it and know like you were just like such a trooper for me, because I was like so protective of her when she was sick. And ultimately she wasn't able to buy me that necklace. But then Mike surprised me and bought it for me for my 30th. And it was like, I could cry thinking about it. It was just like,
I'm like gonna cry down. I'm like very emotional. I'm sorry.
yeah, I know. I'm like always crying. But I think that for me, that's exactly why I started the stacks. Like moments like that felt like just really special.
Did you meet him after your mom passed, or did he get to meet your mom?
No, he met my mom. My mom like absolutely adored him. No,
So she got the seal of approval.
I was married a year when my mom got sick, and then she passed. Yeah, so we were already married a year. We were in Harbor Island celebrating our 1-year anniversary when my mom collapsed and they rushed to the hospital. We were like on the flight back from Harbor Island when that happened. So I tend to look back at my wedding. It was like one of the best weekends of her life. It was like all of her friends from London, it was like almost a celebration, a lot of like my mother, like looking back at my wedding, like a really beautiful way. And so it's kind of kismet that it all happened like a year later,
It's funny because for some reason, grief ends up coming in a lot of this podcast. Like, and I was talking to Jess, and Jess also kind of met her husband, and like her dad passed away, and the whole thing kind of was similar to me and whatnot. And we were talking about always finding a way to stay. I mean, now obviously we have children, all of us, and it really changes you. And you're like, okay, well, what is going to happen to them when I'm not there? And there's this, I can only like guess that for your mom, like what I would hope for my children is like when it's my time, because like everyone is going to have a time, I can leave them with someone that takes care of them and that can like really protect them in a way. And I feel like that will give me so much peace, being able to do that. And I feel like it's so beautiful that your mom got to celebrate that with you and give you that peace. she was able to walk away because she knew you were taking care,
Yes. It's so true. And it's like beautifully said. I think that I was very lucky in that. And I'm really not one to ever boast about my marriage or brag about stuff. Like I grew up in such a superstitious household where like that's part of my jewelry thing. Like, we always wore red on my name, like a red ribbon. Like, it was always like red boards off evil or the evil eye or the Hamza. Like, and I think with one of the eeriest memories I have of like I made a bracelet for my mother with like a private jeweler in New York right before she passed, where it had all the protective symbols. So it had like a cross, it had like, a Hamza, an eagle eye, like it had all of them. And it was just a really simple gold bracelet. And I remember it fell off. She lost it like right before she ultimately like was going to get like go to the hospital and come back kind of thing. I
Mm-hmm.
remember her calling me being like, "Oh my God, the bracelet is gone." And the idea of that protected talisman going like to this day gives me the chills.
Yeah.
We never found the bracelet again, and it wasn't like she was going a lot of places, so it was kind of all eerie. But no, I think with Mike, I was very lucky in that he really was there for my mother too when she was sick. He was working in a big law firm at the time, and he would like take time to take her to Central Park and like walk her around and talk about things that she would never talk to me about in terms of like the idea of her dying. That wasn't ever going to happen. She never prepped me. Like there was never a goodbye chat. That just like it wasn't even in her orbit. Like the idea of leaving me, her sisters. So with Mike, she was able to go to those places and be like, if and when this happens, like do this for me. So not to get too heavy, but I think, um, yeah, he really held space for me.
Was he always into jewelry as well, or did he learn kind of like through you and like coming into your world, or was his family also very much into it as well?
Mike's mother is super chic. She's has talk about like going to a jewelry box. I'm always asking to look at her jewelry. So yeah, I think like definitely his eye was drawn to that. But by no means is he into jewelry. I just like I said, him into like he's not like I say it. He just knows that like there's a stone that I love. But
Yeah.
he's not exactly like looking at jewelry on his like off days.
Yeah, yeah. What could I possibly buy her? But speaking of like Mother's Day is coming up, and
Yes.
very, very fast. And I I think there's some people find it cheesy. I like being celebrated because we had to carry children for 10 months in our
Yes.
bellies and our bodies went through a lot. And I just think we deserve jewelry. I
Yes.
definitely don't want a microwave or anything for the house. It needs to be for me. That I want to wear.
Yeah.
What would be Mother's Day presents that you would like to get or gift to like other moms?
Such a good question. I would say I love a personalized piece for Mother's Day.
Mhm.
So I would say it doesn't have to be as like hit the nail on the head with like a stone of your mother. Like it doesn't have to be like that. But I often look for some way of like hand engraving something into a simple pendant
Mhm.
or a script ring that has a name. I love the old ID bracelets. I got when each of my kids were born on their first birthday, I bought myself this, and it has their initials and then their birthday on the other side. And it's like the old, like, when like you were like going steady, there was like those bracelets that like people used to give
Yeah.
each other. My
Yeah.
mom used to talk about those. So like I now have them, and so when the kids get older, they can each have their bracelet. Um, I also really love like Buddha Girl. I don't know if you know this brand,
Mm-mm.
but they have these amazing like blessed bracelets that are rubber, but they're in gold,
Oh.
and they have them in different colors. So for my goddaughters or like for any like little girls in my life, they make the baby ones and they can like grow into them. So Lila always has one on because I have one, so it's like our little friendship bracelet. I love getting those for Mother's Day, like a mother-daughter one or a son and daughter. Like my son loves the blue one. Anna Pierce is a jeweler. She's almost like a little sister to me. I've known her for a long time, and she's kind of gone out. She's finally gone out on her own. She's worked for a lot of jewelers um, as their kind of co-designer or like collaborative, but now she's actually doing her own, and she does these amazing posy bands that the way that they're edged, there's two sides to engrave. So for this one, it says like on one side it says forever and a day. That's Mike and our like quote for each other. Like, I love you forever and a day. And then on the other side is my pride and joy. My mom used to call me her pride and joy. And my children, I say that to them all the time, like they're my pride and joy. And so what I love about this is you can have like different worlds on a ring, right? So it's like
Yeah.
my husband, my children, and then inside it's like all of our initials. That's like really special. A dine ring, I'm dying for one of those, like a tablet ring like you have with like different motifs.
Yeah, I
Just
need
like
to get one for Phoenix. I still haven't gotten because now that I know all the options and I've seen so many more, I feel like I need even more symbols to it.
yes. I'm like obsessed with them. I think I also think just like a classic pair of like really beautiful like cultured diamond like earrings, you know, like I like what's actually happening in lab and cultured. I think there's some people doing it really beautifully and really well.
Yeah.
And to have like I love a beautiful like simple earring stud. And I think like Already does really good ones. Um
So you are pro lab grown because I feel like they get a lot of bad rep also in the industry. How do you feel about that?
you know, it's such a loaded topic. I think that I'm definitely pro lab and cultured for certain things.
Yeah.
You know, I think that um, I don't like put my nose up to anything. Like I'm not gonna like if someone wanted a lab engagement ring because they wanted a bigger like go for it. I think that's great. But I think there are certain things that are sacred and should be like you know like an engagement ring. I do believe like I like an antique with famous stone. However, I'm seeing new designers do really beautiful pieces and they have sustainable methods of doing it. That's not what it used to be. I think there's certain, and it's just like anything, there's certain labs that are doing it really well, and that it's like they're growing a diamond from a petri dish. You know, it's a real diamond. It's just grown under like controlled like circumstances. It's not like cubic zirconia. It's like a real. Like, once you start understanding the the story behind cultured diamonds and how the advances that have been made, is actually really cool. Like,
Is
and really nice.
lab grown and culture the same thing? Because you said culture
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
Is
So
it
lab grown is basically like cultured. Like I guess I just like saying cultured because it feels more like growing. Like I don't know. Like it's like a lab. Just I think of like a petri dish and like a white coat and like it's really depressing. You know. So cultured to me feels like it is cultured. It's grown from something. You know. And so I've seen what I like about it is you can do really epic pieces that might cost, you know, $250,000 to do it if you were doing it in real diamonds. But now you do it in lab and you have something that still feels like just like really special, but isn't gonna break the bank, you know.
who do you think is doing good lab grown pieces that feel intentional?
I would say I'm lucky to know that I've done a bunch of them and I've worked with them. I love what they're doing. And I feel like they have some cool collaborations coming out that like I just think they're really original. I think Alexi is doing some really amazing pieces as well. Dorsey's always been known for lab.
Yeah.
And I would say there's Fiametta's somewhat of a new brand out there now that's doing lab. Really, like I would say the only lab that I've worn myself is with a red. I love their pieces.
I met them when you were here. There's also so chic and so great too. So and the design element is there because I feel like before a lot of the pieces that I've seen with lab grown just felt
Yeah,
like a copy of like a basic thing. You know, I feel like the first time I saw one was Minty, which also
yeah,
that's lab grown, which I love. Like
yeah.
and they're
Minty's cool.
and they do very intentional, very exciting pieces. I love green and pink, so they did one that was like the colors, the two bracelets together make a necklace. So they feel fun still, and there's an element of design that is still there. But besides that, everything else I've seen is looks like a not very design oriented and just like a big stone. So then for me, that doesn't feel necessarily special either.
Totally. Yeah, no, I think that like there's this kind of reputation of it being like imitation jewelry, right? Like costume jewelry is in lab. And I think when it comes down to it, like if there's silhouettes that feel really original and beautiful, like in a red or like Minty like playing with different enamel or ceramic with the colors, like I think that there's opportunities for really amazing work that feels like so affordable, I would hope.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and also I meant to say on the Mother's Day thing, like enamel is so special. Like working with enamel and like something like Alice Ciccolini, the way she works with enamel and creates these motifs and patterns with flowers, and like how she juxtaposes that with stones and the colors, like that to me is like Mother's Day. It's like the colors and how and like vibrancy of her pieces. And there's so many people doing enamel, I think is really interesting too.
What are some trends on the market as far as jewelry goes?
In terms of like trends, I would say like corrugated gold is like, I feel like working with gold in interesting ways, and like arranging it so it catches the light. Like I think I'm seeing a lot of people start actually manipulating the gold more, and it's not just about the stone. A simple gypsy set ring that was like really trendy for a while. I think it's about like just getting back to more sculptural jewelry, um, has been something I've been like really keen on seeing. Um, but honestly, like personalized jewelry, like I mean, listen, I think the biggest trend I'm seeing is like leather pendants, right? Like you have the Tupulo one, Dina Rader does them. A lot of people have come out with them. Marie Lichtenberg. I mean, there's so many that everyone has their take on it. And I think that's fun too. And I think it's like it's such a visual sculptural piece to have a big like letter on you, and the font is so great. Even the jewelers like CC out of London, who's doing, painterly rings that feel really personalized. I think people are getting really into that. I mean, and then also I would say like playfulness in jewelry, in like high jewelry has come back, or is it's always kind of trending. Like Nadine posting like her jewelry with like amazing nail bracelets, or like the way that she's done those is just like it's bringing something like fun into jewelry again. Um, I've been really drawn to that. And then I would say that like one of the bigger ones is shells. Obviously, is a big one. Like people love them. They're still trending. Of course, they're fast. I'm working with like organic shapes, and objects, and kind of reforming them into something more elevated. Is like always really amazing to see. Sam does that with her stones. But I would say like the bigger one that everyone's loving right now is carved stone pendant. So like Sophie Garden, she just came out with a goldfish, and it's like just like the kid goldfish that we eat.
Yeah.
It's just like a little pendant based on that in like carnelian. So it's orange with a diamond eye, and it's like pop art jewelry, and it's like it immediately brings people back to like being a child and the joy of jewelry. And so I think a lot of people like immediately want that. Dezo is doing like the coolest stuff, with diamonds and stones and shells, So I think there's definitely been a movement towards that sort of thing.
Which is interesting because, like, I feel like when we started talking about like kind of how to start a jewelry collection, you tended to go towards personalized pieces, and those are obviously more original pieces. And now, when you're telling me what the trends are, they tend to be very specific, right? Because I mean, Deso, for example, is a lot of shells and like different colors and layering them together and all that stuff. That's not for everyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it is still very personal because you're layering them together, and then you're kind of like expressing yourself through the jewelry as well. And a lot of the other brands that you've been saying kind of have that that invisible thread, kind of of them. How can anyone contact you if they want to work? Is it DM? Is it email? How does it work?
I love when people reach out, and I love working with people. I usually get DMs, and then it goes to email.
Like I'll put your contact information also at the bottom. I'll put the website of the stack and Instagram and everything for everyone. Maybe next time I'm in New York, we can do one like live too with like actual pieces of jewelry. But I'm excited. I'm excited for all of you to know Victoria, that follow us at Trillion, and please contact her or have your husbands just like put that link. You know what I mean? Like that way you won't be disappointed. There's still a couple weeks left before Mother's Day.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how fast we can. I'm sure you know plenty of people, so you can turn things around pretty fast depending on what the piece is. So there is time. It's not too late. Don't get mad like me. I literally had an alarm for yesterday, being like, Mother's Day is in a month. You need to book something and buy me a present. And I literally put it on the calendar so he's reminded.
Yeah, good. Yes.
Yeah, they can put that and your contact information. Thank you for being here. I love you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I love you more. Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be on.
Thank you. Love you. Bye.
I love you.